I still remember that moment, his defiant glare as I stood before the court, the man who had harmed me, who thought he'd walk free. But then my mother's letter was opened. The entire courtroom fell silent. He wasn't smiling anymore. For years, he'd stolen my inheritance, bruised my body, and shattered my trust. Now, watching the color drain from his face as the judge read those damning words, I knew justice had finally arrived. This is the story of how I reclaimed everything he took from me. My name is Emily Harrow, and at 28, I thought I'd seen the worst life had to offer. How wrong I was. That night at Le Bernardin, Denver's most exclusive restaurant, was supposed to be a celebration. My birthday dinner with family. The crystal chandeliers cast warm light over our corner table, and for a moment, everything seemed perfect. Mom wore her favorite pearl necklace. Mark, my stepfather, had actually dressed up in his charcoal suit, and even my usually absent grandfather had promised to make an appearance. I was halfway through my lobster bisque when the atmosphere shifted. The restaurant's gentle hum quieted as Robert Harrow entered. My grandfather, the telecommunications mogul whose name graced half the buildings in downtown Denver. At 73, he commanded attention without trying, his silver hair perfectly styled, his presence filling the room like a force of nature. "Emily, darling," he said, kissing my cheek before taking his seat. His cologne, the same expensive blend he'd worn since I was a child, brought back memories of happier times. 28 already. How time flies. We exchanged pleasantries, but I noticed his sharp blue eyes studying Mark and my mother. There was something calculating in his gaze, something that made my stomach tighten. "I was thinking about your 25th birthday gift the other day," grandfather said casually, swirling his wine. "How are you enjoying the penthouse at Skyline Tower?" The words hung in the air. I felt my fork pause midway to my mouth. "I'm sorry. What penthouse?" The silence that followed was deafening. My mother's face went pale, her fingers gripping her wine glass so tightly I thought it might shatter. Mark shifted in his seat. That practiced smile of his faltering for just a second. "The one I bought for you when you were born," grandfather continued, his voice dangerously soft. "Part of your trust fund arrangement. Surely you received it 3 years ago along with the fund transfers." My heart was pounding now. "Grandfather, I don't know what you're talking about. What trust fund?" His expression hardened, transforming from the loving grandfather I knew into the ruthless businessman who'd built an empire. He pulled out his phone, typed something quickly, and within minutes, a man in an expensive suit appeared at our table. James Morrison, his personal attorney. "James," grandfather said, never taking his eyes off Mark. "Please show my granddaughter the documentation for her trust fund." The leather portfolio James produced might, as well have been Pandora's box. As he spread the papers across the table, pushing aside plates and glasses, my world began to crumble. There it was in black and white. The Emily Marie Harrow Trust, established on my first birthday. Initial value, $7.5 million. "This can't be real," I whispered, my hands shaking as I read. $7.5 million and a penthouse. "Read the maturity clause," grandfather instructed. My eyes found the highlighted section. All assets to be transferred to the beneficiary upon reaching 25 years of age. I looked up at my mother, searching her face for answers. She couldn't meet my eyes. Mark, however, had recovered his composure, leaning back in his chair with that infuriating smirk playing at his lips. "There must be some misunderstanding," Mark said smoothly. "Perhaps the lawyers made an error in the transfer." "There was no error," James interrupted, producing another document. "The transfers were made, multiple withdrawals over the past 6 years, all authorized with forged signatures. The penthouse deed was illegally transferred, and is currently generating rental income of $8,000 monthly. The numbers on the bank statements blurred before my eyes. Withdrawal after withdrawal, hundreds of thousands at a time. My inheritance, my future, systematically drained. Where's my money? My voice came out as barely a whisper, but the rage building inside me was deafening. Where's my money, Mark? He shrugged, actually shrugged, as if we were discussing a missing $10 bill. Investments don't always pan out, Emily. Investments. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. Other diners were staring now, but I didn't care. You stole from me, both of you. Lower your voice, my mother finally spoke, her tone sharp. You're making a scene. I'm making a scene. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You stole $7.5 million from your own daughter, and I'm the one making a scene. Grandfather stood, placing a firm hand on my shoulder. We are leaving, James. I want a full forensic accounting by morning, every penny traced. He looked at Mark with undisguised contempt. And you? Enjoy your evening. It might be your last as a free man. As we walked out, I heard Mark mutter to my mother, dramatic old fool. He can't prove anything. But the slight tremor in his voice told me he knew, just as I did, that everything was about to change. The private conference room at Morrison & Associates felt like a war room. Grandfather had summoned his entire legal team, and by morning, the mahogany table was covered with documents, bank statements, and laptop screens displaying financial records. I sat there, still in yesterday's clothes, having not slept a single minute. Let's start from the beginning, James Morrison said, adjusting his glasses. The trust was ironclad, or so we thought. Your mother was named as custodian until your 25th birthday, with strict oversight requirements, which she clearly ignored, Grandfather growled, pacing behind my chair. Sarah Mendes, the firm's forensic accountant, pulled up a spreadsheet on her laptop. The first unauthorized withdrawal was 6 years ago, $50,000, small enough to not trigger automatic alerts. Then they got bolder. I watched the numbers scroll past, each one a betrayal. How did they even access it? Your mother had signing authority as custodian, but only for education and medical expenses, James explained. Every withdrawal was documented as one or the other, forged receipts from universities that never received payment, medical procedures that never happened. The creativity is almost impressive, Sarah said grimly. In 2019 alone, they withdrew $800,000 for your supposed Harvard Business School tuition. I've never even applied to Harvard, I said, my voice hollow. Here's where it gets interesting, Sarah continued, pulling up another screen. The money didn't just disappear. We've traced most of it. Mark established 3 shell companies, Red Rock Investments, Mountain Peak Holdings, and Silverline Ventures. The money was funneled through these entities. Let me guess, Grandfather said, failed investments. Worse, Sarah replied, cryptocurrency gambling. Essentially, he bought into something called Lunar Coin at its peak and lost 90% of the value within 6 months. Then there was the online casino phase. He lost $300,000 in one weekend playing virtual poker. My stomach churned. My future. Gambled away on fake internet coins and online card games. The penthouse is another story, James added, sliding a deed across the table. Transferred to Mark's name 2 years ago, supposedly as payment for a debt you owed him. What debt? I've never borrowed a penny from that man. According to this document, you borrowed $2 million for a failed business venture. James pointed to a signature at the bottom. That's supposed to be yours. I studied the signature. It was close, but not quite right. The E was too looped. The Y too short. I need to see everything, I said. Every document they forged, every lie they told. Sarah pulled up property records. Skyline Tower, penthouse, 68th floor, corner unit. Panoramic mountain views. Current market value, $3.2 million. They've been renting it out for $96,000 a year, all going into Mark's personal account. While I've been living in a studio apartment in Capitol Hill, I said bitterly, sharing walls so thin I can hear my neighbor's alarm clock. There's more, Sarah said quietly. We found records of luxury purchases. A boat, the Madison Dream, purchased for $400,000, a Porsche 911 Turbo, jewelry, watches, first-class trips to Monaco, Dubai, the Maldives. Each revelation was another twist of the knife. While I'd been working 60-hour weeks at a small design firm, eating ramen to save money, they'd been living like royalty on my inheritance. Can we prove it all? I asked. The paper trail is extensive, James assured me. But Mark was sloppy. He used the same IP address for all the shell company registrations, his home computer. The forgeries are amateur work. Any decent expert will spot them. And here's the best part, Sarah said. He filed tax returns for the rental income from your penthouse. He reported stolen income on his taxes. Grandfather laughed, but it was harsh and angry. The man's an idiot. An arrogant idiot. Sarah corrected, he thought Emily would never find out. The trust documents were supposed to be sealed until she requested them, which he assumed she'd never do since she didn't know they existed. How much is left? I asked, though I dreaded the answer. Sarah's expression was grim. Of the original $7.5 million plus 18 years of compound interest, which should have brought it to roughly $12 million, there's about $1.2 million left, frozen in an account we've just located in the Caymans. They stole $11 million. The number was so large it didn't feel real. Plus the penthouse, James added, plus 6 years of rental income, plus damages for fraud, breach of fiduciary duty, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. All told, they are looking at liability exceeding $15 million, which they don't have, I said flatly. No, but Mark has assets, Grandfather countered. The boat, the car, a vacation cabin in Aspen we just discovered. Your mother has her own investment portfolio inherited from her parents. We can go after all of it. Grandfather finally stopped pacing, placing both hands on my shoulders. Emily, I'm sorry. I should have been watching more closely. I trusted your mother to do right by you. We all did, I said, looking at the photo on my phone. Mom and me at my college graduation, both smiling, her arm around me. How many lies was she telling even then? So what now? I asked. James and Sarah exchanged glances. Now, James said, we build a case that will put Mark in federal prison and recover every penny we can. But Emily, you need to know this is going to get ugly. They are going to fight back. Looking at the evidence spread before me, years of deception documented in black and white, I felt something harden inside me. Let them try. They've already taken everything. Now it's my turn. The confrontation came sooner than expected. I'd returned to my mother's house in Cherry Creek to collect my things, old photos, my grandmother's jewelry, anything that was truly mine before everything went to hell. I thought they'd still be at their country club, maintaining their charade of wealth. I was wrong. Mark was in the living room, sprawled on the leather sofa. I now knew my money had purchased, bourbon in hand, despite it being barely noon. He looked up when I entered, that infuriating smirk already forming. Well, the princess returns, he drawled, not bothering to stand. Come to beg Mommy for forgiveness. I came for my things, I said evenly, though my hands were already clenched into fists. I'll be out in 20 minutes. Your things. He laughed, the sound ugly and sharp. Nothing in this house is yours, Emily. Never has been. You've been living off our charity for years. Our charity. The words exploded out of me. You mean my $11 million? His face darkened, and he stood slowly, deliberately. Mark was a big man, 6 feet 3 inches, broad-shouldered, still strong at 52. He'd used that size to intimidate me since I was 15, standing too close, looming over me whenever I questioned anything. You don't know what you're talking about, he said, moving closer. That money was tied up in investments for your future. Every decision was made for your benefit. He paused, his face darkening. Cryptocurrency gambling is for my benefit. A boat called the Madison Dream after your ex-wife is for my benefit. His face flushed red. You ungrateful little. What? Say it, Mark. Tell me what you really think of me. You're nothing, he spat, close enough now that I could smell the bourbon on his breath. You've always been nothing. Weak, pathetic, just like your real father. At least he had the decency to die and leave your mother something useful. The mention of my father, who died in a car accident when I was 2, sent rage flooding through me. Don't you dare. What are you going to do? He grabbed my wrist as I tried to pass him, his grip tight enough to hurt. Run crying to Grandpa. You think that old man scares me? He sneered. Let go of me. Or what? His grip tightened, and he yanked me closer. You'll call your lawyers. You have no idea who you're messing with. I've destroyed bigger threats than you. I tried to pull away, but he held firm. Mark, you're hurting me. Good. Maybe you'll finally learn your place. That's when something in me snapped. Years of intimidation, of walking on eggshells, of watching him steal my future while playing the devoted stepfather in public, it all crystallized into a moment of absolute clarity. My place. I said quietly. Let me tell you about my place. I twisted my wrist sharply, a self-defense move I'd learned specifically because of him, breaking his grip. The surprise on his face was almost comical. My place is as the rightful owner of $12 million that you stole. My place is as the victim of fraud, embezzlement, and assault. Yes, assault, Mark. Every threat, every shove, every bruise you thought I was too scared to document. I pulled out my phone, showing him the recording app that had been running since I walked in. My place is as the star witness in your federal trial. His face went from red to purple. You little, he lunged forward, shoving me hard against the wall. Pain shot through my shoulder as I hit the corner of a picture frame. Mark. My mother's voice cut through the room. She stood in the doorway, designer bags in hand, looking between us with wide eyes. What are you doing? Your daughter is trying to destroy us, he snarled. But he stepped back. No, I said, standing straight despite the throbbing in my shoulder. You destroyed yourselves. I'm just shining a light on it. My mother dropped her bags, her perfectly composed facade cracking. Emily, please, we can work this out. We're family. Family? I laughed bitterly. Family doesn't steal. Family doesn't stand by while someone hurts their daughter. You never what, Mom? Never knew he was violent. Never heard him threaten me. Never saw the bruises. She looked away, and that small gesture told me everything. You knew, I whispered. All these years you knew what he was, and you chose him. You chose money over me. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. I moved toward the door, pausing to look back at them. I'm done being your victim. Done being your ATM, done pretending this is normal. Mark stepped forward again, but I held up my phone. Touch me again, and this recording goes straight to the police, along with the others I have. Oh yes, Mark. I've been documenting everything for the past year. Every threat, every incident. His face went pale for the first time since I'd known him. Mark Williams looked afraid. You're making a mistake, he said, but the bravado was gone. I can make your life very difficult. More difficult than stealing my inheritance and assaulting me. I shook my head. I don't think so, but please try. Every threat you make, every action you take, it's all just more evidence. I walked to the door, my shoulders screaming in protest. Before leaving, I turned one last time. Oh, and Mark, that penthouse you've been renting out. My grandfather's lawyers filed an emergency injunction this morning. The tenants have been notified that their lease is invalid. You might want to lawyer up. The sound of glass shattering followed me out, Mark's bourbon against the wall, no doubt. But I didn't look back. I'd spent too many years looking back, hoping things would change, that my mother would choose me, that Mark would disappear. Now I knew better. The only way out was through. And if that meant war, then war it would be. The war room had expanded. Grandfather's penthouse now housed what looked like a small law firm with laptops, printers, and boxes of evidence covering every surface. But today, we had an unexpected visitor, a woman I'd never seen before. Mid-30s, with sharp eyes and designer clothes that couldn't quite hide her exhaustion. Emily, grandfather said, this is Ava Winters. She has something you need to hear. The woman stood, extending her hand. I'm Mark's daughter, his real daughter from his first marriage. I nearly dropped my coffee. Mark has a daughter, Ava corrected bitterly. He disowned me 5 years ago, when I refused to invest my trust fund in his schemes. But before that, I watched him destroy my mother the same way he's destroying yours. Sarah Mendes pulled out a chair for Ava. Tell Emily what you told us. Ava opened a worn leather folder. My mother, Patricia, divorced Mark when I was 18. She'd remortgaged our house 3 times without her knowledge, emptied my college fund, and opened credit cards in her name. Sound familiar? My stomach tightened. How much? $2.3 million, including the house, Mom's inheritance from her father, gone in 4 years. Ava pulled out a photograph, a woman who looked broken, aged beyond her years. This was taken right before she died. Heart attack at 51. The doctor said it was stress-related. I'm so sorry, I said, meaning it. Don't be sorry. Get angry. Get even. Ava's eyes flashed. I've been tracking Mark for years, building my own case. When I heard about your situation, I knew it was time. James Morrison leaned forward. Ava has recordings, Emily, from when she was 22, trying to get her college fund back. Ava pulled out an old phone, clicking play on a voice recording. Mark's voice filled the room, younger, but unmistakably his. You want your money? Sue me. See how far you get when I tell everyone about your mother's little prescription problem. Oh, that's right. I'm the one who got her hooked in the first place. Stress, you know, makes people do desperate things. The recording clicked off. The room was silent. He drugged your mother. I whispered. Controlled her medication, gaslighted her, isolated her from friends. By the time she realized what was happening, she was too broken to fight back. Ava's voice was steady, but her knuckles were white. I was young, scared. I took the $20,000 he offered to disappear and ran. I've regretted it every day since. Grandfather stood, his face granite. This establishes a pattern of behavior. Multiple victims, same methods. There's more, Ava said. I've been in contact with 3 other women he's dated since my mother. Each one lost money, one lost her business, another her retirement savings. He finds women with assets and dying parents or wealthy families. Makes them fall in love, then systematically destroys them. We need them to testify, Sarah said immediately. Already working on it. 2 have agreed. The 3rd is scared, but considering it. Ava turned to me. But you're the one with the power here, Emily. Your grandfather's resources, the clear paper trail, the amount involved, you can take him down. It's not just about taking him down anymore, I said, surprising myself with the coldness in my voice. It's about justice for everyone he's hurt. A knock interrupted us. One of grandfather's assistants entered. Mr. Harrow, there's been a development. Mark Williams has hired Preston Bailey. The room went quiet. Preston Bailey was Denver's most notorious defense attorney, the man who'd gotten millionaires off murder charges. He's scared, James said with satisfaction. Bailey doesn't come cheap. I wonder whose money he's using for that retainer. Follow the money, grandfather ordered. Every penny. Ava stood to leave, then paused. Emily, can I give you some advice? He's going to come at you personally. He'll try to make you look unstable, vindictive, spoiled. He'll twist every word, every action. Don't let him. How do I fight that? By being exactly what you are, she replied. A survivor, not a victim, not a vengeful daughter, a survivor seeking justice. She handed me a business card. My therapist, she said. She specializes in financial abuse victims. Trust me, you'll need her. After Ava left, I sat with my grandfather and the legal team, strategizing late into the night. We mapped out every move, every counter-move. The private investigator grandfather hired had been following Mark, documenting his meetings with Bailey, his trips to the bank, his increasingly erratic behavior. His liquidating assets, the investigator reported. Sold the boat yesterday, well below market value. He's either planning to run, or preparing for a long legal battle. Put a hold on his passport, grandfather ordered. James, I want him flagged at every airport. Already done. We also found something interesting. He's been visiting a storage unit in Aurora. Paid for 5 years in advance in cash. What's in it? We are working on a warrant now. As the team worked around me, I studied the evidence we'd gathered, bank statements, forged documents, property deeds, recordings. Each piece was another nail in Mark's coffin. But Ava was right. He wouldn't go down without a fight. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother, please come home. We can fix this. I'll make him give it all back. Please. Emmy. Emmy. She hadn't called me that since I was 12. I showed the text to grandfather. His expression softened for just a moment. She's your mother, Emily. This can't be easy. She chose him, I said, though my voice cracked. Every day for 13 years, she chose him over me. And now she gets to live with that choice. Another text came through, this time from an unknown number. You have no idea what you've started, little girl. Back off now or things get messy. I screenshot it immediately, forwarding it to James. Another piece of evidence. Another threat. Another mistake by Mark. Let him threaten, I said to the room. Let him rage. Every move he makes just tightens the noose. Sarah looked up from her laptop. Speaking of nooses, she said, we just found another hidden account. Jersey. $500,000. The money kept surfacing like bodies in a lake. Each discovery fueled my determination. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about Ava's mother, those other women. Everyone Mark had destroyed while my mother looked the other way. "We are going to win," grandfather said, squeezing my shoulder. "Not just the money, Emily. We are going to get justice." Looking at the team assembled around me, lawyers, investigators, and now Ava fighting from the shadows, I believed him. Mark Williams had finally picked the wrong victim. The girl he dismissed as weak had grown into a woman with resources, allies, and 13 years of suppressed rage. The war had begun, and I intended to win. The federal courthouse in downtown Denver had never felt more imposing. 6 weeks of preparation had led to this moment, the preliminary hearing that would determine whether criminal charges would proceed. I sat between grandfather and James Morrison, my hands steady despite the storm inside me. Mark entered with Preston Bailey, both in expensive suits meant to project confidence, but I saw the tells, the slight tremor in Mark's hand, the tightness around his eyes. He'd lost weight, his usual swagger was replaced by something desperate. When our eyes met across the courtroom, his lips curved into that familiar smirk, the one that used to make me feel small. Not anymore. Judge Patricia Hernandez called the hearing to order. The prosecution, led by Assistant U.S. Attorney David Park, laid out the charges: wire fraud, money laundering, embezzlement, and identity theft. Each charge carried years in federal prison. "Your Honor," Park began, "we have clear evidence of systematic theft exceeding $11 million over 6 years, involving forged documents, shell companies, and cryptocurrency fraud." Preston Bailey stood, his voice smooth as silk. "Your Honor, this is a family dispute over investment decisions made with full authority. My client acted as a responsible guardian of assets, making decisions he believed were in the beneficiary's best interest. Losing $11 million in cryptocurrency gambling was in my best interest," I muttered. James touched my arm, a warning to stay quiet. Park presented the evidence methodically. Bank statements appeared on screens, showing the hemorrhaging of funds. The forged signatures were displayed side by side with genuine ones. The differences were glaring under magnification. "Mr. Williams established 3 shell companies," Park explained, funneling trust funds through them into high-risk investments and personal purchases. "We have receipts for a boat, luxury vehicles, and properties, all bought with stolen funds." Bailey countered smoothly. "Investment vehicles and asset diversification, standard financial planning." That's when Park played his ace. "We would like to present audio evidence, Your Honor." The courtroom filled with Mark's voice from Ava's old recording, threatening his ex-wife, admitting to controlling her medication. Then came my recording from 3 weeks ago. Mark's violence was clearly audible. The sound of me hitting the wall was unmistakable. Mark's smirk vanished. "There's a pattern here," Park continued. "Mr. Williams targets women with assets, gains their trust, then systematically destroys them financially and emotionally." Bailey objected, but Judge Hernandez overruled him, her expression stern. Then came the moment I'd been dreading and anticipating. Park called me to testify. I walked to the witness stand, my heels clicking against the floor. Mark watched me, his jaw clenched, that familiar rage building behind his eyes. But there was something else now, fear. "Ms. Harrow," Park began, "when did you first learn about your trust fund?" 6 weeks ago, on my 28th birthday. My grandfather mentioned a gift I should have received at 25. A penthouse in my trust fund. I had no idea either existed. "Why didn't you know?" "My mother and stepfather never told me. They actively hid it, creating fake explanations for our wealth. Mark told me his business was successful. I believed them." "What was your financial situation while your inheritance was being stolen?" My voice stayed steady. "I lived in a 500 square foot studio, worked 60-hour weeks, and ate ramen most nights to save money. I couldn't afford a car, so I took the bus. Meanwhile, they were spending my millions on boats and vacations. Bailey stood for cross-examination, his smile sharp. Ms. Harrow, isn't it true you're angry at your stepfather? Yes. So angry you'd say anything to punish him? No. So angry that I'm finally telling the truth. You claim he was violent. Yet you never filed a police report. I was scared. He controlled my mother, our finances, our lives. I thought I had nowhere to go. How convenient that you suddenly found courage when money was involved. I met his gaze directly. I found courage when I discovered the extent of his betrayal. The money was mine. Mr. Bailey, my father's life insurance invested by my grandfather for my future. Mark stole it, gambled it away, and yes, that gave me the courage to finally speak up. Your relationship with your mother, it's strained. It's broken. She chose to protect him instead of me. Perhaps you are punishing her through him. I'm seeking justice for crimes committed. If she's complicit, that's her choice. Mark suddenly stood, Bailey grabbing his arm to stop him. She's lying, he shouted. This is all her grandfather's doing. The old man's poisoned her against us. Judge Hernandez slammed her gavel. Mr. Williams, control yourself or you'll be removed. But Mark's outburst had done what hours of testimony couldn't, shown his true nature. The mask had slipped, revealing the violence beneath. Park submitted more evidence. The storage unit in Aurora had contained boxes of documents, including originals of the forgeries, practice signatures, and a laptop with deleted files our tech expert had recovered. Files showing Mark's gambling addiction, his debts, his desperate attempts to win back what he'd lost. Your Honor, Park concluded, Mr. Williams didn't just steal money. He stole a young woman's future, her security, her trust. He did it deliberately, systematically, and without remorse. Bailey made one last attempt. Your Honor, my client is willing to make restitution. He can return the remaining assets, sell properties, and make this right without criminal proceedings. Judge Hernandez looked at Mark for a long moment. Mr. Bailey, your client stole $11 million. He assaulted his stepdaughter. He shows no remorse, only anger at being caught. Restitution isn't enough. She turned to the prosecution. I find probable cause for all charges. This case will proceed to trial. The gavel came down, and Mark's smirk finally completely disappeared. As court officers approached with handcuffs, he was being held without bail as a flight risk. He looked at me one last time. You've destroyed your mother, he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Hope you're happy. I'm not happy, I replied, standing tall. But I'm free. As they led him away, my mother, who'd been sitting in the back, rushed forward. Emily, please don't do this. But grandfather stepped between us. Margaret, you made your choice. Now live with it. Walking out of that courtroom, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years, hope. The trial would be brutal, the recovery long. But for the first time since I was 15, Mark Williams had no power over me. The war wasn't over, but this battle was mine. The trial had been grinding on for 2 weeks. Each day brought new revelations, more evidence, deeper wounds. Mark sat at the defense table, his orange jumpsuit a far cry from his designer suits, his face gaunt from months in federal detention. The prosecution was building their case brick by brick, but Bailey kept finding cracks to exploit. Then Sarah Mendes found the letter. Emily, she called that morning, her voice urgent. You need to see this. We were in the prosecutor's office, preparing for another day of testimony. Sarah handed me a yellowed envelope, my mother's handwriting across the front. For Dad, Robert Harrow. Where did you find this? In your mother's safety deposit box. The bank records showed she'd visited it 3 years ago, but never again. We got a warrant. My hands shook as I opened it. 3 pages of my mother's careful script, dated 3 years prior. Dad, it began, I'm writing this because I'm too ashamed to say it in person. I need help, but I don't know how to ask. I read aloud, my voice growing quieter with each paragraph. Mark has complete control now. What started as him helping with Emily's trust has become something darker. He made me sign papers I didn't understand. When I questioned him, he reminded me about that night in Vale. The accident, the pills he gave me to calm down, the man who died. He says he has evidence that could destroy me. He's stealing from Emily. I know it, but I can't stop it. Every time I try, he shows me the photos from that night. The police report he somehow altered. He's hit her. I've seen the bruises. She thinks I don't know, but I do. I'm a coward. Dad, I chose my own freedom over my daughter's safety. The money is almost gone. He lost millions on cryptocurrency, online gambling, terrible investments. He laughs about it. Says Emily never needs to know, but she will, won't she? Someday she'll learn what we've done. I should have left him years ago. Should have protected her, but I'm trapped. He has recordings of me agreeing to the transfers, documents with my signature. He's made me complicit in my own daughter's destruction. If you're reading this, maybe I finally found the courage to send it. Or maybe something happened to me. Either way, please help Emily. She deserves better than a mother who failed her so completely. I'm sorry for everything. The office was silent. David Park, the prosecutor, was the first to speak. This changes everything. What accident? I asked, though I was afraid of the answer. Sarah pulled up old police records. 3 years ago. Vale. A hit and run that killed a pedestrian. Your mother was questioned, but never charged. The witness statements are inconsistent. Mark tampered with evidence, Park said grimly. He's been blackmailing your mother. I thought of all the times I'd begged her to leave him. All the times she'd looked away when he hurt me. She hadn't been choosing him. She'd been trapped. We need to present this today, Park decided. Judge Hernandez needs to see this immediately. 2 hours later, we were back in court. The letter was entered into evidence, and Park read it aloud to a stunned courtroom. My mother, sitting in the gallery, began sobbing quietly. Bailey objected furiously. This letter is hearsay, Your Honor. We can't cross-examine a letter. The author is present, Judge Hernandez noted. Is Margaret Harrow willing to testify? My mother stood slowly, her face pale. Yes, Your Honor. What followed was the most painful testimony I'd ever witnessed. My mother took the stand and fell apart completely. He drugged me that night in Vale, she said, her voice barely audible. Gave me something that made everything fuzzy. I don't even remember driving. I woke up the next morning, and he told me I'd killed someone. Showed me photos, a police report. Said he'd fixed it, but owned me now. Did you kill someone, Mrs. Harrow? I don't know. Mark said I did. The photo showed my car. Damage, blood. But the police report he showed me later was different from what I remembered seeing. I've never known what was real. What about your daughter's trust fund? He made me sign everything, she cried. Said if I didn't, he'd turn me in for murder and Emily would lose her mother along with her money. I thought I was protecting her by staying. Mark was on his feet, Bailey unable to restrain him. You lying witch, he shouted. Tell them the truth. I am telling the truth, my mother screamed back. Years of suppressed rage erupting. You destroyed us. You took everything. Our money, our dignity, our relationship. You're a monster, Mark. Judge Hernandez was pounding her gavel, calling for order. Court officers moved toward Mark. But he wasn't done. She wanted the money as much as I did. She knew about every withdrawal, every investment. She's playing victim now to save herself. Mr. Williams, the judge said coldly, one more outburst and you'll be gagged. Bailey requested a recess, which was granted. In the hallway, my mother approached me, mascara streaming down her face. Emily, I'm so sorry. I thought I was protecting you. You thought wrong, I said. But there was no anger left, only exhaustion. But you're telling the truth now, and that matters. When court resumed, Park introduced evidence that destroyed Mark's blackmail claim. The real police report from Vale showed no fatality that night, only a minor fender bender my mother had reported. Mark had fabricated everything. Fake photos, fake reports, fake threats. He gaslit her for 3 years over a murder that never happened. This is the depth of his manipulation, Park told the jury. Bailey tried to salvage his case, arguing that my mother was lying to avoid prosecution herself, but the evidence was overwhelming. The letter, written when she had no reason to lie, was damning. Combined with Ava's testimony, the financial records, and now proof of the blackmail scheme, Mark's defense crumbled. During closing arguments the next day, Park held up the letter. This isn't just about stolen money, he told the jury. It's about a predator who destroyed multiple families, who used sophisticated psychological manipulation to control and steal. Margaret Harrow isn't the criminal here. She's another victim. Bailey made one last attempt, painting Mark as a flawed man who made bad investments, not a criminal mastermind, but even he seemed to know it was over. The jury deliberated for only 3 hours. As we waited, my mother sat beside me for the first time in months. Can you ever forgive me? She asked quietly. I don't know, I answered honestly. But I understand now. That's a start. When the verdict came, guilty on all counts. Mark didn't smirk. He didn't rage. He just stared at me with naked hatred as the judge read each conviction. Wire fraud, money laundering, embezzlement, identity theft, extortion, a new charge added after my mother's testimony. The letter that was never sent had become the key that locked his cell. The sentencing hearing arrived 6 weeks after the verdict. The courtroom was packed. Journalists, victims' advocates, and several women I didn't recognize at first. Then Ava nodded at me from her seat, and I understood. These were Mark's other victims, come to witness his final fall. Judge Hernandez called the court to order. Mark stood in his orange jumpsuit, shackled at wrists and ankles. The smirk that had haunted my nightmares for years was gone, replaced by something hollow and defeated. Before I pronounced sentence, the judge began. I'll hear victim impact statements. I was first. Walking to the podium, I carried the speech I'd written and rewritten a dozen times. But when I looked at Mark, I set it aside. You stole more than money, I said, my voice carrying through the silent courtroom. You stole my sense of safety, my trust in family, my relationship with my mother. For 13 years, you made me feel worthless. Told me I was nothing. But here's what you never understood. I survived you. Every woman you hurt survived you. And now, we're the ones with power. Mark stared at the defense table, refusing to meet my eyes. Ava spoke next, her voice trembling with controlled fury. You killed my mother. Not literally, but you broke her spirit so completely that her heart gave out. She died believing she was worthless, just like you told her she was. I hope you remember her face every day in prison. Then came the others, Patricia Vaughan, who'd lost her retirement savings, Linda Morrison, whose business had collapsed after Mark drained its accounts, Jennifer Park, who'd fled the state to escape him. Each woman told her story, painting a portrait of a serial predator who'd left financial and emotional destruction in his wake. My mother took the stand last. I failed my daughter, she said simply. I let you convince me that protecting myself was more important than protecting her. But she's stronger than both of us. She did what I couldn't. She stopped you. David Park presented the prosecution's sentencing recommendation. Your Honor, the defendant stole approximately $11 million from Emily Harrow alone. Combined with his other victims, the total exceeds $15 million. He showed no remorse, attempted witness intimidation, and fabricated evidence to blackmail Margaret Harrow. We request the maximum sentence. Preston Bailey made his final plea for leniency, citing Mark's lack of prior convictions and his age, but even Bailey seemed to know it was futile. Judge Hernandez looked directly at Mark. Mr. Williams, do you have anything to say? Mark stood slowly. For a moment, I thought he might finally apologize, show some hint of humanity. Instead, he turned to me. You think you've won? His voice was quiet but venomous. You've destroyed your family for money. How does that make you any better than me? The judge's expression hardened. Mr. Williams, that statement perfectly encapsulates why you're here. You still don't comprehend the magnitude of your crimes. She continued, you systematically targeted vulnerable women, exploited their trust, and destroyed their lives for your own greed. You used sophisticated manipulation, including fabricating a murder, to control Margaret Harrow. You showed violence toward your stepdaughter, and complete disregard for the harm you caused. The courtroom held its breath. On the count of wire fraud, I sentence you to 8 years. Money laundering, 5 years. Embezzlement, 7 years. Identity theft, 3 years. Extortion, 5 years. She paused, letting the numbers sink in. These sentences will run partially concurrent, for a total of 15 years in federal prison. Additionally, you are ordered to pay full restitution to all victims, totaling $15.3 million. 15 years. Mark would be 67 when he got out, if he survived that long. Furthermore, Judge Hernandez added, upon release, you'll serve 5 years of supervised probation and be permanently barred from any fiduciary role. The gavel came down with finality. Mark turned one last time, as the marshals prepared to lead him away. Our eyes met, and I saw something I'd never seen before, fear. Real, bone-deep fear of the future he'd created for himself. Enjoy the penthouse, he spat, his last attempt at cruelty. I will, I replied calmly. Every square foot of it. As they led him through the door to begin his sentence, something extraordinary happened. The women in the gallery, his victims, began to stand. One by one, they rose in silent solidarity. We stood together, survivors of his cruelty, watching him disappear into the prison system that would be his home for the next 15 years. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. But grandfather's security team cleared a path to his waiting car. As we drove away, I saw my mother standing alone on the courthouse steps, looking lost. Stop the car, I said. She testified, I explained. She finally chose me over him. That deserves something. I got out and walked back to her. Mom, I said. She looked up, tears streaming down her face. I don't expect forgiveness. I know, but you're free now. We both are. The money, the penthouse. The penthouse is mine, I said firmly. The money will be recovered and distributed among all his victims. You'll have to rebuild, just like I did. Now, we figure out if there's anything left to salvage between us. It won't be easy, and it won't be quick. But Mark's gone. That's a start. That evening, I stood in my recovered penthouse for the first time. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the Denver skyline and the mountains beyond. This had always been mine, bought with my father's life insurance, meant to secure my future. Sarah Mendes called with the final numbers. We've recovered $1.2 million in liquid assets, the penthouse valued at $3.2 million, and we're liquidating his properties. You won't get everything back, but you'll get enough. What about the other women? Ava's establishing a victims fund. Each will receive a portion based on their losses. It won't make them whole, but it's something. I walked through the penthouse, running my fingers along the marble countertops, the hardwood floors, the life that should have been mine at 25. But maybe I wasn't ready then. Maybe I needed to be the woman who could stand in a courtroom and face her abuser, who could choose justice over silence. My phone buzzed with a text from Ava. We did it, all of us, together. Then another from a number I didn't recognize. Harrow, my name is Rachel Coleman. Mark Williams targeted my grandmother 5 years ago. Thank you for stopping him. You saved others from what we went through. As the sun set over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, I realized something. Mark had stolen my money, my trust, my innocence. But in fighting back, I'd gained something worth more, my voice, my strength, and a sisterhood of survivors who'd refused to let him win. 15 years. He'd spent 15 years in a cell while I lived in the penthouse he'd stolen, building the life he'd tried to destroy. That wasn't justice. It was poetry. 6 months after the sentencing, I stood before a room full of young women at the Denver Community Center. The Phoenix Fund's first official meeting was about to begin. What started as an idea born from rage had transformed into something powerful. A foundation dedicated to helping victims of financial abuse rebuild their lives. My name is Emily Harrow, I began, looking at the faces before me, some young, some older, all carrying that familiar shadow of betrayal. 6 months ago, I put my stepfather in federal prison for stealing my inheritance. But this story isn't about revenge anymore. It's about what comes after. The Phoenix Fund had grown beyond my wildest expectations. Grandfather had matched my initial investment, and donations had poured in from unexpected sources, including several of Denver's most prominent businesswomen, who'd quietly survived their own financial abuse. Ava had become my co-director, bringing her years of research and her mother's memory to our mission. We offered legal consultation, financial counseling, and most importantly, a community of survivors who understood that the theft of money was never just about money. Financial abuse is about control, I continued. It's about making you feel powerless, dependent, worthless. But here's what I learned. Taking back control isn't just about recovering money. It's about recovering yourself. After the meeting, I drove to a coffee shop in Capitol Hill, not far from the studio apartment where I'd lived while Mark spent my millions. My mother was waiting, nervously stirring her latte. Our relationship would never be what it once was. Trust, once shattered, leaves scars even when rebuilt, but we were trying. She'd started therapy, sold the house she'd shared with Mark, and taken a job, her first in 15 years. How was the meeting? She asked. Good. 12 new members this week. I'm proud of you, Emily. Your father would be too. We sat in comfortable silence, two survivors of the same predator, learning how to be mother and daughter again without the shadow of Mark between us. That evening, I hosted a dinner in my penthouse. Ava brought her husband and children, the family she'd built despite her father's destruction. Sarah Mendes came with her partner, James Morrison with his wife. Even David Park stopped by, bringing news that made everyone cheer. Mark's appeal had been denied. He'll serve every day of those 15 years, Park announced, raising his glass. But the celebration felt hollow, not because justice hadn't been served, but because I'd learned something important. Revenge, even justified revenge, doesn't heal wounds. It just stops them from getting deeper. Later, as my guests mingled on the terrace overlooking the city lights, grandfather pulled me aside. "You've changed," he observed. "6 months ago, you wanted to destroy him. Now, I want to build something better from the wreckage," I replied. "Mark took 15 years of my life. I won't give him another minute of my future." The Phoenix Fund grew rapidly. Within a year, we'd helped 43 women recover over $2 million in stolen assets. We'd provided pro bono legal services for 18 divorce cases involving financial abuse. We'd educated hundreds about the warning signs of financial predators. One night, I received a letter forwarded from the federal prison. Mark's handwriting, which once would have triggered panic, now stirred only mild curiosity. "Emily," it read, "I hope you're happy with what you've done. 15 years for trying to provide for our family. Your mother wanted that money as much as I did. But you've poisoned everyone against me, even my own daughter. Enjoy the penthouse. I hope it was worth destroying your family. Mark." Still no remorse. Still the victim in his own story. I fed the letter to the fireplace, watching his words turn to ash. Ava had been right. Men like Mark never truly understand their crimes. They rewrite history in their minds until they are the heroes, the misunderstood, the wrongly accused. But his version of the story didn't matter anymore. The truth had been told in court, recorded in transcripts, validated by a jury of his peers. 15 years in federal prison was the final word on Mark Williams' story. A year after the trial, the Phoenix Fund held its first annual gala. We raised $300,000 in one night. My mother attended, brave enough now to share her story publicly. She spoke about the insidious nature of coercive control, how it creeps in slowly until you can't remember who you were before. "My daughter saved me," she told the audience. "Not just from Mark, but from the woman I'd become under his control. She showed me that it's never too late to choose courage over comfort, truth over silence." As I watched her speak, this woman who'd failed me but finally found her strength, I felt the last of my anger dissolve. Forgiveness, I'd learned, wasn't about forgetting or excusing. It was about choosing to release the poison before it destroyed you, too. The Phoenix Fund now operates in 3 states. We've helped recover over $10 million in stolen assets. We've put 4 financial predators behind bars. We've created a network of survivors who support each other through the complex journey of rebuilding after financial abuse. Mark Williams gave me a gift he never intended. He showed me my own strength. He taught me that survival isn't just about enduring. It's about transforming trauma into purpose. Every woman we help, every predator we stop, every survivor who finds her voice, that's my real revenge. The penthouse he killed to possess has become the Phoenix Fund's headquarters. The walls that once heard his lies now echo with stories of survival and hope. The views he thought he'd stolen stretch out before women reclaiming their futures. Sometimes I stand at those floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at the mountains that have witnessed everything, my father's death, my mother's betrayal, Mark's cruelty, and finally, our collective triumph. The mountains remain unchanged, eternal, indifferent to human drama. But I've changed. The scared girl, who didn't know she had a trust fund, has become a woman who helps others reclaim what's theirs. The victim who stayed silent for 13 years now speaks for those still finding their voices. Mark Williams sits in his federal cell, counting down 15 years. I've stopped counting altogether. There's too much work to do, too many women to help, too much life to live. This is what victory really looks like. The victim who stayed silent for 13 years now speaks for those still finding their voices. Mark Williams sits in his federal cell, counting down 15 years. I've stopped counting altogether. There's too much work to do, too many women to help, too much life to live. This is what victory really looks like, not the moment your abuser is led away in handcuffs, but the moment you realize they no longer define your story. You do. My name is Emily Harrow. I'm a survivor, an advocate, and living proof that sometimes the best revenge isn't just winning, it's building something beautiful from the ashes of what they tried to destroy.